what does it mean when we designate time? It's a certain time of day. What exactly does it mean? How do we calibrate time? Say 12 o'clock noon. What does it mean? Anybody ever think about that?
It's going to
I used to think, but recently I read an article how this standardization happened.
Okay.
It happened because standardization happened for rail timings in England to adjust the. So if the train leaves a station from at some time from London and is going to some other city, that station had to know exactly at what time the train reaches there.
But they had time designations in ancient Rome, even with sundials and things.
Sundial.
So there they had random time zones. Whenever the sun is at the zenith, then it is noon.
Okay,
so
why is that random?
No, in the sense different from place to place, not random. Yeah.
Okay.
So then it caused a lot of problems because of accidents and all that. So then they said, okay, Greenwich, where the main station was, they said that's where it will be standard. So if we say noon at that place, then it will be. So everybody else had to set their clock according to that.
Okay.
So that's how the standardization of time.
So time, everything is based on 12 o'clock noon, and then that it should be when the sun is overhead, or at least at the zenith.
Yes.
So the sun will be actually overhead at 12 o'clock noon.
But only on one day of the year.
Once or twice? Got to be
maybe twice. Equinox, two equinoxes.
Yes. The vernal equinox and the...
Yes, twice.
Yeah, what's the other one? Vernal equinox and...
no, June 21st and December 21st. I don't know the names.
That is the solstice.
Solstice. That's not the equinox. Solstice is when it's the shortest day and the longest day. So the equinox
is
March and Eka Nakta.
Eka Nakta.
Equinox. Right? Right?
Eka
is Eka. Same one. Nox, Nakta. Night. So the same night and day are the same.
Oh.
Equinox comes right from the Sanskrit word. Okay.
Is it different in different parts of the hemisphere, Maharaj? Southern versus northern? Something it defines as. It's the same equinox. In March it says March 20th in the northern hemisphere, September 22nd in the southern hemisphere.
No, it should be each hemisphere. Will be twice. Right? So real 12 o'clock noon, if we say is when the sun is directly overhead, it happens twice a year. And if we say that noon really means the zenith, then the actual when it's exactly noon, it'll be exactly when the sun is at the highest point in the sky.
Yes.
Okay.
Then when there is no shadow.
Shadow is the shortest.
So there's no shadow.
At that.
Well, or it's the shortest if it's except only twice a year. There's no shadow at all.
Yeah.
Right.
So, if we want to say that we have a clock that keeps perfect time, it's exactly right. Will it be according to the standardized one, or will it be according to the zenith? If we say noon means when the sun is at the highest point. Because if we have a clock that's perfectly attuned with that, the sun, then that means that we have to be probably right in the middle of our time zone. Because if my clock agrees with your clock and we're at different longitudes, right? Then one of us, it won't be exactly overhead.
Yeah. So even 1 degree away in longitude will not be the same. but this is interval, Maharaj. It's not. We don't know what absolute time is. This is all relative to.
We don't know what
that.
absolute time is.
Right. It's all interval from starting from this to something.
Okay.
I think time, direction, latitude, longitude is all abstract. Human being created for our convenience, right?
Okay. Why am I bringing all of this up? Anybody know?
Time and space. Right?
No. Joto mo toto pot. What does that mean?
As many
Wherever you are, your time is fair.
As many.
as many faiths, as many
Okay.
paths.
What does mat mean? Mata.
Faith or
Opinion.
opinion, yes.
Opinion. Anything else? Mata.
Preference,
Okay. Doctrine. Darshana.
Belief system.
Belief system.
Hmm.
Okay. Because Thakur uses that illustration that everyone thinks that their watch keeps the right time. Right? So I mone kore hame ghodiye thik chobe. Right? But then he says nobody's watch keeps exactly the right time. Then you have to check with the sun.
Hmm.
So what does that mean?
Check with God.
Everything is an approximation. All of our doctrines and things. There's no such thing as one being absolutely right or wrong. That the only thing we can say that is right is the sun itself.
the unchanging, something which is constant, doesn't change.
Yeah.
So that can be.
So with Brahman, when we try to say what Brahman is like or something, the only answer we can give is Brahman is like Brahman. Just point to Brahman. What's her name, the little girl?
Medha.
Medha. Do anybody have paper and pencil?
Pen. Meta, I have a pen here.
There's a pen here.
No. Yeah, look at the chair. Okay. Now I'm going to draw something. You know what this is?
Yeah,
What is it?
the triangles.
What kind of triangle?
A square triangle.
Okay. So, right angle. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you know how to figure out the length of, what do they call it?
Hypotenuse.
Of the hypotenuse. What is it?
Hypotenuse.
Hypotenuse. You know how to figure out the length of the hypotenuse?
No.
Okay. Just a nice trick. Suppose this is 3 inches. This is the length of this line. Okay? That's 3 inches long. Suppose this one is 4 inches. Okay, this is 4 inches.
Okay.
And you want to figure out how long that one is. Okay?
Okay.
You know what this square, how do you square a number? You multiply it by itself. So this is 3. What's 3 times 3?
9.
9. What's 4 times 4?
16.
16. What does 9 plus 16 equal?
80 plus 25.
25. Okay. Now, do you know how to take a square root? 2 numbers multiplied together. One number multiplied by itself equals another number. So you have to do it backwards. Is there any number, if you multiply it by itself, it equals 25? Say, for example, what's 5 times 5?
25.
So, this is how, this will be 5 inches. the length of this will be 5 inches. Because 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. That equals 25. So,
Okay.
and 5 times 5, right,
It's 25.
is 25.
Now
Okay.
I get it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So we know that this is exactly 5 inches long. Right? Now, suppose this side is 2 inches and this side is 3 inches. And we want to find out how long that is. Okay? What will we do?
So you basically have to multiply 2
Times 2 is 4. Okay.
and then
3 times 3,
9,
9. And that equals
13.
13. So we have to take the square root of 13. What's the square root of 13?
6.5.
Exactly?
No,
Three-
no, sorry,
3
3
point
point.
3 point, no, 3 point something. Between 3 and 4.
Between 3 and 4. Can we give an exact number for the square root?
No.
Okay. So that means we're stuck with having to call it the square root of 13. Okay? Now, does that mean that, and we can't say exactly what the square root of 13 is, does that mean that this length is not exactly this long? This is exactly this long and it's 5 inches and we know it's 5 inches exactly. This is this long, but we don't know. We have to say it's the square root of 13, or we can say, what was it? 3.5,
3.5.
6, 9, 4, 3, it'll go on and on and on. Okay? Or we can measure it. If this is exactly 2 inches and this is really 3 inches, we can take a ruler.
Yeah.
We can put a ruler there. But a ruler, it'll give you the inches, it'll give you ½ inch, it'll give you quarter inch, maybe an 1/8 inch. But if it turns out somewhere in between, we have to guess. We won't be able to say exactly what it is. Right? Or we can use a slide rule. Anybody know what a slide rule is? They don't use it anymore. Huh? Has anybody seen a slide rule?
Yes.
Yeah, only the old timers, huh? Yeah, it'll be calibrated, but you won't be able to give an exact thing. So, if somebody says that it's impossible to say exactly how long this line is, right?
Right.
We'll say, no, you're wrong. I can tell you exactly how long this line is. Can anybody say exactly how long this line is?
Square root of 13.
It's exactly this long. If this is really 2 inches and this is really 3 inches, it's exactly this long. So this is the same thing. What can we say about Brahman? It is what it is. We can only point to it. Anything else we say about it will be an approximation within our human limitations. So Thakur gives these. He doesn't give this illustration. For some reason I was thinking about it this morning. But he gives the illustration with time and with the sun. So everybody thinks that their watch is right. Everyone will think that, yeah, we can calibrate the length of this, but it'll be an approximation. But it's exactly this length. So it is exactly the length that it is. Only we can't say exactly what it is. We can only say, yes, that's how long it is. You want to know how long this line is? Look at it. It's right there. That's how long it is. Right?
Yeah.
So this is what we do with Brahman. It is what it is. We can't say anything about it. But whatever we say will have some little shortcoming to it. So the Joto Mat Toto Pat. This Mat, it means every attempt that we make to explain reality. The fact that he says Joto Mat, that means that there are many of them. There are many different interpretations that we have. And they're all legitimate, but not a single one will be exactly. You say you have to check with the sun if you want to see if you're getting close to anything like that. But it's the sun alone is the real thing. But each one can take us to that. So anyhow, now you learned how to find the length of the hypotenuse of an isosceles triangle. Isosceles? No.
Right.
Right angle triangle.
Right triangle.
Okay. Did you know it before?
Yeah.
You knew it? This formula?
I didn't know how to find the length, but
Okay,
I knew
so-
the triangle.
Oh, you know the triangle, so now you know how to find the length. Who discovered that?
Pythagoras.
Pythagoras.
No.
This is called
Before
the Pythagoras
that.
theorem. No?
Before that, some.
Euclid?
Yeah, no.
No, before him.
Before him, there was.
But he
some-
got credit for it.
Yeah.
That's the way it
But
always is.
no, they say it's some Indian rishi
Oh,
had
okay.
either Shalabha or I forgot the name.
Okay.
Shalabha Sutra or something.
Okay. Pythagoras, they think, went to India.
Hmm.
Is the one.
And Pythagoras was known. He was a known plagiarist.
He was a known plagiarist.
Yes.
Really?
There are
He
quite
cheated
a
on
few
tests and
records.
everything?
Quite a few records of him not giving credit to
Really?
others.
Would he look on his paper?
He had this derived this elaborate mathematics behind this. He drew those squares around the
Uh-huh.
this thing, and he came up with this theorem,
Right.
and he proved it. So,
Pythagoras.
yeah,
But did he take it from somebody else?
that's what I get to hear.
Other things. Some of his students also complained that
Really?
yes.
This is a great disappointment. Yeah. Okay. What does medha mean?
Intelligence.
Special intelligence, not ordinary intelligence. Very special intelligence, right? And medha is a goddess also.
Made a soup type.
Yes, beautiful. And it's part of our sannyas ceremony. Okay, that's it. That's the lesson for today. But it's interesting, huh? That people will say, no, there's no way to tell exactly what the length is, but it's right there in front of us. That's it. The sun is right there. We don't know it's exactly noon or anything. How do we know? Yes, we have to check with the sun.
Maharaj, and that depends on the scale you are using. How what's
Calibrated.
how finely it can measure.
Yes, if the 2 inches is a little bit off and the 3 inches is a little bit off, that'll also be off a little bit. But just in theory, if we can get exactly 2 inches, exactly 3 inches, that'll be exactly the length.
Yes.
And even if we're off with the 2 and the 3, that's still the length of that triangle, the hypotenuse of that triangle.
Very nice, Maharaj.
So it is independent of other things.
There's an absolute nature to it.
Yeah.
The length of it that's exactly from an absolute point of view, it's exactly that long.
Yeah.
Or what we say about it will be an approximation to it, because it's through this human mind with our limitations and everything. Yeah. And everyone's approximation will be helpful to them in their own way. Whether they use the slide rule or they use the ruler or they try to calibrate the square root of 13. Doesn't matter that way. So these are the different schools, philosophical schools. Jyotamata is not just different religions. We take it that way because Thakur practiced all the different faiths. So we say it means that as many faiths, so many paths. But it also means whether we're dualists or non-dualists or whatever our philosophical outlook is, everything.
Very nice, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I used to wonder about this.
I probably plagiarized this, so don't. What does plagiarize mean? Do you know?
Plagiarize?
Mm.
I don't know what you mean.
Take a guess. Any idea? If somebody else writes something or discovers something, and you take it and pretend that you did, that it's original, you wrote it and you discovered it, that's called plagiarizing. I don't know what it comes from, huh? Plagiarizing. Hey, don't do it. So I'm finished, that's it. So now you have to ask questions.
So I was chanting 12th of Bhagavad Gita with my niece, and it comes in Arjuna first asks which is the best way,
Yes.
and then while describing what is Brahman or the Advait, Krishna says that it's avyaktam, achintyam, and while telling that, her question was, how does then even think about it? If it is, we cannot think about it.
Yes.
But still, it is saying that it is very, it is everywhere. And still, we cannot even think about it. Then the question is how to. So the answer is be with it. Just be it.
This is one answer. The sadhana that's done for the path of Jnana Yoga is called the Vichara Marga. Vichara. Now, this is something that Swami Bhuteshananda Maharaj used to talk about a lot, that we cannot reach Brahman through Vichara. What we do is we eliminate all the false interpretations and identifications and understandings that we have with regard to our real nature through vichara, through analysis. And what remains is Brahman. So this is the chinta, this is the bhava, the thought aspect. When we practice Jnana Yoga, we use our intelligence, our metta, right? We use our ability to analyze things in order to show that I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am not this, all of that. Not to prove that I am Brahman. That we can't do. We can eliminate everything else through reasoning, and then what remains is. Then we can only say what is. Asti, that's all. Asti eva upalabdhatyam. It is experienced as simply as it is. So it is a chintya. It is a beyond thought. We can't, the real nature of Brahman cannot be understood through the mind. Now, Sri Ramakrishna would always correct people when they would say that Brahman can't be understood through the mind. He would say, no, it can't be understood through this ordinary mind. But through this purified mind, it can be grasped that way. So, it says that Kindriam Buddhi Grahyam. It can be grasped through the buddhi. That means this, not this ordinary mind, but this mind is raised to a high level. It can be grasped through medha. Medha is the intelligence that can grasp the real nature of reality. It's a very special type of intelligence, not the ordinary type of intelligence. So we can't reach Brahman through reasoning, but through reasoning we can understand that our present understanding is false, that especially with regard to our true nature. The relationship between Brahman and the external universe will always be speculative. It'll always be speculative. And this is why even in Advaita Vedanta we have different theories. Is it projection? Is it superposition? It'll just be whatever we like. There's no way to prove without a doubt the nature of the external universe, because we only experience it through the mind. But the nature of the self can be directly experienced because we are that. So Brahman as Atman, that can be directly experienced, but only when the mind either becomes perfectly purified or becomes eliminated. So this Manonasha and this Vishuddhama, these are more or less the same thing. When we say the mind is destroyed, it's not destroyed. It means this superficial mind. The mind is functioning on the thought level, is not functioning at that time. But where else will we experience Brahman if not in the mind? If there's no mind, there's no experience. We have to have, but it won't be this ordinary mind that way. So we can't logically, so it's a chintya, there's no question about that. But still, we can contemplate the nature of the Brahman approximately with the help of images and vast as the sky, something like that. But this really using this strictly this vichara marga, We're simply analyzing this idea. Does my sense of I involve identification with the body? Does it involve identification with the senses? Or we can go through one after the other, and we come to the conclusion that the sense of I transcends all of them. The sense of I can only be explained ultimately by the nature of consciousness itself. My awareness is the aspect of myself that's the witness. It's unaffected by everything, but is watching everything. That's the only thing that's in common to all the stages of life, and through the 3 stages of consciousness, waking, dream, and deep sleep. That's the only thing that's common there. And that's the only thing that I can explain why I feel that I'm the same I, whether it's the I in the dream, I in the waking state, whether it's the I of the child, whether it's a 90-year-old person looking back on the life, the same I. So we have that intuitive feeling, but we can analyze that because of this, my sense of identification is not restricted to this body in this particular state, any of that. So we do use our intellect in the path of knowledge, this vichara, but it serves that purpose of eliminating all false ideas regarding the real nature of the self, and what remains is that ultimate reality. So we realize that square root of 13 won't do it, the ruler won't do it, the slide rule won't do it, but it's right there before us. It is what it is. Whether we give a length to it or we don't give a length to it, that's how long it is. Whether we can say in inches or in centimeters or anything, it doesn't matter. It's not up to us. We don't have to say anything about it. It can be beyond our ability to calibrate it, describe it or anything, but there it is. That's what it is. It's exactly that. So Brahman is what it is, that's all. And we can't say very much about it, if anything at all. Except that when we realize it, we'll realize that it's not something separate from us. It's the self. Otherwise we couldn't realize it. It can't be an object of our experience, right? So because it's the subject, the ultimate subject, and not subject to somebody else. Subject is me. So otherwise, there's nothing we could say about it. This is the problem with this so-called external universe. It'll always be phenomenal for us. Anything that's experienced is phenomenon. We can only experience phenomena. So whatever phenomena is whether it's out there or not out there, we don't even know that. Whether experiencing it through the mind, we can't say. Where do we see an object? Am I seeing the object out here? Am I seeing it as the light bounces off of this and goes to the back of the eyeball? Is that where I'm seeing it? Am I seeing it because the messages are going to the brain? We can't say any of these things. You know what a telescope is. If you look through a telescope, you can see planets that are light years away, right? Suppose somebody drew a little planet on the glass on the telescope, and you looked through it, and it looked exactly the same as the planet that's way out there. Would you be able to tell the difference? Okay, let me tell you, show you. You know what a periscope is?
No.
Okay. Now, you know what this is? Submarine. Okay. Now, what the submarine does, suppose they want to see if there's another ship coming. Okay? Submarine will go all the way to close to the top of the ocean. Okay? And they'll put something, they'll raise it up. It's called a periscope.
Oh, they get to see it from the...
Yes. Now, you know how the periscope works? Suppose there's a ship. Okay, there's a ship out here, and this periscope is here. Now, what happens is that there'll be there'll be some type of mirror here. So if the reflection of the ship goes there, it's going to bounce down here, and there'll be another mirror here, and that reflection will bounce there, and when they look through here, they'll see that same ship.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Got it? So if somebody's looking here, it'll seem to them that the ship, which is above water, is actually the same level that they're on, because they won't be able to tell that it's actually reflected there and reflected there, and they're seeing it there. So are they seeing the ship that's reflected in the mirror here, or are they seeing the ship that's reflected in the mirror there, or are they actually seeing the ship out there?
They're seeing the ship reflect in the mirror.
Okay. And we can't even say which mirror. Is it actually reflected here, here? We're seeing the ship, but we're not seeing it directly. We're seeing it that it's reflected there and reflected and reflected there. Now, do you know how people see objects in the world?
They travel place by place and see them.
Okay, but there's more than that. This is an eyeball. Okay. Now, this is the back of the eye. Now, suppose we have there's a person there. Now, what happens is, this is a lens. The light goes like this, and it goes like this, and on the back of the eyeball, we have an upside down person. Because the light gets refracted through the lens, and the image that shows on the back is an upside down person. See, because the light from this foot, it goes in this direction and it ends up here. The light from the head goes in this direction and ends up there. Okay? Now, this upside down person, it goes through something called the optic nerve, this image somehow, into the brain. And it leaves an impression in the brain which is equivalent to whatever this person looks like. Right? Then somehow the brain is like a hardwired computer, and then we have the mind, which is like a wireless computer. Somehow this image from the brain goes to the mind, and what we think we're seeing out here, we're actually seeing in the mind somehow. Only it appears that we're seeing it outside of ourselves. This is called virtual reality. So what we think of as virtual reality is actually, this is also virtual reality.
On a bigger scale.
On a bigger scale. We have the impression that we're actually seeing. I went to Disneyland once. Did you ever go to Disneyland?
No.
Okay. There's one of the places where you can go is they put you in a very dark room, and you sit in a chair that's hanging down, so your feet are dangling. You're just kind of suspended in midair, and everything is dark. And they show you a film of an airplane, but the camera that is shooting everything is right in the cockpit of the airplane. So what you're seeing, it's as if you were sitting in the airplane, and you don't see anything else around you. So you feel like you're in the airplane, and when the airplane makes a turn, you know, if something turns real fast,
Yeah.
how you'll turn?
Yeah.
They turn the seat.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there's noise there, they'll give you the same noise. And if there's some smell of smoke, you'll smell the smoke. So that you think that you're actually in the plane flying. You get that feeling that you're there. So this is where we also have that feeling that we're doing things and everything. It's all taking place in the mind. And the funny thing is that the mind, even that isn't enough for experience. we have to have the witness. We have to have this consciousness. Now, where does the witness stay? We know where the brain is. We're not quite sure where the mind is. Somewhere they say all pervading the body. Sometimes they say, but where does the witness stay? You want to know? It's a big secret.
I want to know.
Bangalore and New Delhi. And computer centers. Transcendent. This is in that realm of Brahman. This is the realm of God. So this is how we can say that we're all, without this big God, we won't be able to experience this person that we see through the eyeball, through the optic nerve, through the brain, to the mind. It's all taking place because of the consciousness which we call God or Brahman. What do you think? Complicated, huh? Not too complicated. You got it, huh? Meta. Very intelligent, huh? You got the right name. I'll give you a good name. Meta, I love that name. Okay. So, it's a good question. So, this achintya, it's true, but it doesn't mean that we can't use our power of discrimination. You know, this we have this image in the Upanishads. You'll like this one. Did you ever look at grass, stalk of grass?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes there'll be different blades of grass. Right? So that'll be like a stalk of grass with 3 blades. Okay? Now, how are they connected? The different blades of grass. Did you ever try to pull it apart?
No.
Okay. It looks like the stem, there's one single stem, right? And there are 3 different blades coming out. But actually, if you are very careful, you cut the grass here, you're very careful, you'll see that they're simply wrapped around each other. There's no one single stem. That you can separate them without ripping it off or tearing it off or anything like that. And the inside of it is nothing. There's nothing holding them all together. They're just wrapped around each other. So it seems as if they're connected, but there's no sambandha there. This is the example that they give for separating the coverings of the self from the self. So we think that the soul is somehow bound up and covered by all of these things and connected to it and everything, but we can actually peel off the layers without, and it's completely unaffected by any of that. So this is the example, and we do it through this Tarik Drishya Viveka. You had Swami Sarvapriyananda, was he here? That's his favorite subject, you know that. I'm sure he spoke on that, huh? Yeah. So this is how we distinguish. If we want to find out who the real self is, then we make 2 categories. One is the seer, and the other is the seen. So we have drishya, anything that can be experienced. Drik means drashta, means the seer. Now, if you see something, right? You see a knife. That means that you're the one who's seeing it, and the knife is the object that's being seen.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, suppose you have a dream.
Okay.
Well, who is the seer? Who is watching the dream?
I am.
Which you? Because you're also in the dream. Right? Suppose you have a dream that you're eating an ice cream cone. You're seeing the dream as the sleeping person. And you're seeing the ice cream as the ice cream eating person.
Now I understand.
She's very smart, huh? See how smart? Yeah. So even in the dream, the observer of the dream is different from the character in the dream. Now, if you have a thought, say you're thinking about a friend of yours, right? Who is the one seeing that thought? You.
Yeah.
Right? Suppose the thought is about yourself. You're thinking about, first of all, you're thinking about your clothes, then you're thinking about your health, you're thinking about your hands, and then you're thinking about your senses, that I can see very well, I can hear very well. Then you're thinking about even this ego. You know what the ego is?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's a bird.
No, not an eagle. Ego. E-G-O.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What is it?
It's like basically I.
Yes, who you think you are.
Yeah.
Okay? You can think about who you think you are. You can say, oh, I have a very fragile ego, don't hurt my ego, I'm too egotistical. You can think about that, right? That means that this ego is something separate. You're the one who's watching it. So even this ego belongs on the side of the seen. Your personality. You can think about your personality. I'm so cute, I'm so nice, right? That means that there's a you that is observing that. And if it observes it, then it's different from it. So anything that we possess, if you say, I have a body, that means that I'm different. If I have a dog, I'm not that dog, right?
Right.
I have a body, I'm not that body. I have it. I'm the one who has it. So I have to be something different from that. You have a mind. I have a mind. That means I must be, the possessor of that mind has to be different from the mind. So we end up with the real seer is this, what we call the witness, the one who is watching. Whenever you do anything, you can feel yourself watching yourself do it. That's the real I. That's the I that will be watching from today all the way till you're an old lady. And that'll be the one that makes me feel that, oh, that's who I was when I was little, and now this is who I am when I'm big. That I, that's the real I, and that real I is also, God is the real witness. So we have witness capital W and witness with a small w. How can we have two? You know how we can have two? The you in the dream, who is eating the ice cream cone, is also observing the whole thing. The you, as the sleeper, is also having the dream and observing the whole thing. One is the witness, small w. The other is the witness, capital W. Got it?
No.
No. Okay. There's a lot to get in one day. Suppose you're dreaming now. Okay? When you wake up from that, when you wake up from a dream, how do you know you had that dream? You were the one who dreamt it.
Yeah.
It was you. Of course you'll know it. But which you? Is it the you in the waking, when you wake up from the dream? You say, I had a dream. So if somebody says, how did you know what took place in the dream? You say, well, how silly. It was my dream. Of course I know. I had the dream. It was my dream. So you know it because you were the one who had the dream. While you're having the dream, if somebody says, well, how do you know that you're eating an ice cream cone? You'll say, because I'm watching myself eat the ice cream cone. That's the little you in the dream. The big you who's sleeping is also observing the whole thing at the same time.
Oh.
Right?
Now I understand.
Got it?
Another topic, Maharaj.
Yeah.
So Anand has written a lovely note on the origin of what we call Greenwich Mean Time, noon, and so on.
Okay.
Hari may wish to read that.
Okay.
You have a chance.
Okay.
Wish to means to better read. May wish to means read it.
Yeah, no, I understood that.
So Maharaj,
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
question that we, the ultimate goal of spiritual life, we think that to attain salvation. and then we also, on one hand, we think that to understand the reality, absolute reality, which is Brahman, and also another angle we think, okay, the stepping stone towards that is to cut down on your or shed all the desires. So this salvation or this moksha, that is this the the actual goal or attaining Brahman? Or,
this is one of my favorite questions. I've never spoken on it. I thought that I should try to give a talk on this sometime. Ishwar Labh, Sri Ramakrishna uses this expression, right? Jivna Uddesho Ishwar Labh. He will say this, the goal of human life is, and he'll just use this expression. What does it mean? The attainment of God, we can say, right? Ishwar Labh. Now, the first thing is that this is the ultimate goal of life. It doesn't mean that we can't have other goals in life, right? That we have our different stages of life. There'll be different goals of life, the aims of life, on the householder stage, and the student stage. So suppose the Medha has a goal that she wants to get an A+ on her test. That's a goal in life, and it's a good one. It's legitimate, all of this. So when Thakur says Ishwar Labh, he means the ultimate goal of life. Now, he'll say in many places also that there are devotional schools that will say that this mukti is not the goal of life, that prema is the goal of life. To have love of God is the ultimate goal, and this mukti is a very low ideal. Karma Yogi will also say that. Swamiji says those who are seeking their own liberation will go to hell. Yeah, and those who don't care for it, mukti will run after them themselves. They don't have to worry about that. So it's not that there's one single interpretation of what Ishwar Labh means. This God really got attainment. It can be, for the jnani, it can mean one thing, that we want to know the real nature of the self. For the devotee, it can mean I want to have the vision of God. Now, in Vaishnava schools, they have 5 different types of mukti. There's Sayudhya, Samipya, Sarupya, Sadharmya, and one other, I don't remember. And this Sayudhya, one merging in God, is the lowest for them. They wanted distinction. They wanted some sense of separation to enjoy this communion with God. So for them, Ishwar Labh, that'll be higher, to be in the presence of God, Samipya, to have the feeling of the relationship and love of God. So, but they won't like this idea that the individual disappears and merges in Brahman. It's not at all appealing to those who follow the devotional path. And so Sri Ramakrishna, he would quote, there's one little couplet that Krishna says, I don't mind giving you mukti, but it's very rare for me to give prema, that type of thing. So it depends a little bit on our spiritual outlook, what we consider to be this ultimate goal of life. It should include this idea somehow that it'll put an end to this round of birth and death. But what that ultimate state is very much a bone of contention among the different schools of Vedanta. In fact, if we think about the difference between the schools, Vedanta schools, there's not much difference, and it's not very important whether we say I'm one with the Brahman, or I'm an ocean, a wave in the ocean of Brahman, or I'm a spark out of Brahman. They don't care too much about that. The real argument is what happens after death. This is where the dualists will say no, that I don't disappear in that state. Otherwise, what's the point of all of this? My sense of individuality continues in that state. So it's more like a heaven type of thing. For the dualists, the jiva retains some sense of particularity, personality. For qualified non-dualists, the jiva becomes perfectly purified. But still, there'll still be many. And it's actually a very sensible idea. It's hard for us to imagine there can be an experience without individuality. So even though there's no sense false identification with body, anything like that, still they say that there's some sense in which they can feel that yes, I'm existing, a part of Brahman, something like that. Of course, for the non-dualists, it's completely the sense of I is gone. Whatever individuality there was turns out to have been false. That there never was any. So this is, Thakur says, the stick on the ocean, that it never did have the ability to separate one side from the other side, it only gave the appearance. So that would be the non-dualist. So there's no very simple answer to what is the goal of life. Even to say mukti, you'll have with these highly devotional schools that will say no, that to get prema is a higher goal of life. Whether mukti comes or doesn't come, we don't care. That way. But all of them will say that somehow it falls under their explanation of what this Ishwar Labh means. So they won't question that, yes, we're all trying to have that same ultimate experience, but their definition of that ultimate experience will be a little bit different. It's an interesting question, huh? We sometimes think that everyone should have exactly the same attitude with regard to this final goal of life, God realization. But it's not true. For those who believe in a personal God, they'll want to have some personal experience. Those who believe in the impersonal absolute, they'll want to realize their oneness with that. Others will want this perfect communion, this state of union. This state of union, see, we have different things. We have union, we have identity, and we have oneness. We use this sometimes almost interchangeably, but they're very, very different. So this idea of union, this will be a dualistic idea. Two people who can come together, right? Union. The sense of identity. This is very interesting. Identity implies duality. Right? Identical twins. Huh? Unless you have two of them, they can't be identical. Right? Huh? Say we have the same car. What does that mean, we have the same car? Yeah, but we both have Toyotas, they're both Corollas, they're both the same color, the same year, same model, everything. We say, I have the identical car, I have the same car. So there has to be a number. This is Ramanuja's idea, that in this ultimate state, that all of the impurities and all of the particularities and everything are kind of cleansed from the jiva, so that each one is identical, and identical with the Brahman, but in a miniature state. So that each one is discrete and separate and everything, but in terms of the vastu, in terms of the actual substance of it, is identical. Now, oneness is something completely different. Completely different. And I may have given this example before, this example of Clark Kent and Superman. You know who Clark Kent was? You know Superman? And Clark Kent? No, not Clark Kent. What other example do we have?
Mother, that Swahananda.
We can do that one, but Clark Kent and Superman are better. Anyhow, Superman is some of the special powers. He can fly through the air, and he has X-ray vision. You know?
I don't know.
He's a superhero. Okay.
Yeah, I know he's a superhero.
Okay. Now, Clark Kent, these superheroes, they usually have a separate identity so that people don't know who they are. Clark Kent is a reporter for a newspaper. He wears very thick glasses. He has very bad eyesight. He's very timid. He's afraid of everything. But in reality, he's actually Superman. So if ever he has to be Superman, he throws away his glasses because he really has good eyesight. and he takes his other clothes off and wears his cape and everything, and he can fly through the air. So what's the relationship between Clark Kent and Superman? Does Clark Kent merge into Superman? Does he become Superman? He is Superman, right? But it's the opposite thing. With identical twins, they'll be identical. This is a case where we have oneness, but the appearances, they're completely opposite in every way. With the bad eyesight, with the lack of courage, all of that, completely opposite. So we because of our superimpositions, we think of ourselves as small and limited and fearful and all of that. When we can take all of this and we have our cape and everything, and we know that we're Superman, then we realize that all of these other things that it was just the false one. Now, we won't say that Superman is really Clark Kent, because the poor eyesight and everything is not ultimately true. But we'll say that Clark Kent is ultimately Superman. Right? So that's the third school. There's a oneness idea. That'll be Advaita Vedanta. So for the different schools, this uddeshya, this goal of life will be a little bit different. Those who are dualists, they'll want this union. They'll want that state where we have that vision and we can commune with the divine in whatever form. In some of the schools, it's a very graphic. It's very much like Western ideas of heaven. You'll be in the banks of the Yamuna and you'll be able to sit with Krishna. He's raising the cattle. I went to a lecture once from the ISKCON, and they were talking about all of that. There's an ultimate state. Everyone will, those who are devotees of Krishna, they'll be in this Nitya Vrindavan, this eternal Vrindavan, and they'll be sitting there and watching him and sitting with the cattle and everything, and the gopis and all of it. So there'll be all different conceptions that way of what is ultimate. And of course, ultimately we have to say that either these are subjective, that we're superimposing our own idea of what we think heaven will be like, or they're subjective in the sense that each person will have his own. That those who believe that's what their experience will be. That it's not a question of going to some real actual loka, but this will be the experience that they have in different ways of interpreting it. Or else we can say that this is just their conception, that there's no ultimate reality to it, but we don't know. We don't know all of these things. And also this state of identity, if there's no real particularity left to the individual, and each one is individually more or less merged in Brahman, then where's the distinction? Right? If we're all sitting in one room in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and one scenario, the other scenario is we're all in our own homes in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, what's the difference? There's no awareness of any of the other things anyhow. So some of the arguments are not very based on a great deal of difference, but some of them are especially for the devotee. Sri Ramakrishna's attitude was that it's not a question of right or wrong. He had a very clear understanding of this idea of mata, that it's an opinion. That these doctrines are simply there's nothing that corresponds to a mata in actual reality, any more than the square root of 13 applies. I mean, there's some relationship, of course, but it's not the same as pointing to that. So his attitude was that it's a question of two things. One is ruchi bheda. What does that mean? Ruchi bheda.
According to taste.
Okay, we all have different taste. And hajam shakti.
Digestive power.
Power of digestion.
Sorry, what is that? Digestion.
Power of digestion. Or we can say adhikara. Adhikara, but he, like this other thing, is nicer because he used the example of the mother with the fish.
Right.
She would make all different types of fish for two reasons. She knew which one that her children liked, but she also knew which ones that they could digest. So in spiritual life, these are most of what we believe in is what we like. This is, to me, a very interesting and important doctrine. It's not so much that we take it to be true, but we'd like it to be true, where it pleases us. Because the problem is that we take it to be. The problem is that we confuse the mata with satya. We confuse what should just be our opinion or our understanding of something with the ultimate truth. So if I say that I think it's like this, that means that I think you should also think that it's like this. Whereas we really should say, I think that it's like this, but your idea that it's like that is also a good idea. I don't mind. You can think whatever. If you like that idea, then good. Because, ruchi bheda, we have different tastes. That appeals to you, this appeals to me. Not that there's no, question of logical standards and things. There will be some ideas that don't make any sense at all. But there'll be a limit. We won't ever reach a point where logic will prove that it has to be this way, it can't be that way. So this is the first, and then Hajam Shakti. Then this is the problem mostly at chapter 12. Okay, the problem with those people who like Soham, but they can't digest it. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say that yes, because many householders, they would say to him, yes, I like this idea, this Soham idea. And he would say, but don't you know that if you want to follow that path of oneness, that at the very outset, you have to have no identification with the body. You have to have no attachment. You have to have this burning dispassion, vairagya. That otherwise, you won't have this Shakti, the Hajam Shakti. You won't be able to digest it. And this is what Swamiji called undigested Vedanta. That the Soham means that I can do whatever I want. There was one sadhu that used to tell lies. That he stayed in the Dakshineshwar temple for a while, and so the other devotees were complaining. So Thakur said to him, what is this I hear, that you tell lies? And he says, if the whole universe is false, then why alone must my words be true? So Thakur said, I spit on your Vedanta. So he said, so what kind of Vedanta is that? Yeah. So these were the two things. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say, there's a beautiful Bengali song that says, Ami chini hote chai nai ma, ami chini khete bhalobashi. I don't want to become sugar, I want to taste sugar. So what does this mean? Does it mean that this doctrine of oneness is false? That ultimately, see, Ram Prasad thinks that ultimately Ram Prasad is a dualist and says, no, you'll never become sugar. No, he says, I don't want it. That's not my spiritual attitude now. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say that he would pray to the Divine Mother, Mother, don't let me lose consciousness in Brahman. Let me keep this little stick of ego so that I can enjoy two things. Bhakta, bhakti. I want to enjoy this devotion and I want to have the company of the devotees. But ultimately he believed that yes, not only will we become sugar, but we already are. So we get the exact opposite teaching with regard to Swamiji. Remember, Thakur said to Swamiji, suppose that there's a cup filled with rasa, with some syrup, a cup filled with syrup, and that you're a fly, and you want to enjoy the syrup. What would you do? So Swamiji said, I'll land on the edge of the cup, and I'll reach over, and I'll start sipping the syrup from there. And then Sri Ramakrishna said, why will you just sit on the edge? He said, if I go in the middle, I may fall in and drown. That's a good point, right? So the fly will get drowned in the syrup, we won't be able to enjoy it. So Sri Ramakrishna said, my child, this is this nectar of immortality, amrita. One can't drown in that. One becomes immortal if one immerses oneself in that nectar. So the other teaching there, that yes, it's okay, you want to keep some sense of separation for that enjoyment, but there's also ultimate bliss in becoming one. So because Ruchi Veda and Swamiji alone was able, he had that Hajram Shakti, he was the only one of Thakur's disciples that Thakur really felt was 100% suited to this path of non-dualism. That so we tried to explain to him, yes, that this oneness is also a type of others. He not that he didn't teach non-dualism to all of them. He did, but as a spiritual practice, he wanted them to keep it tied in the corner of the cloth, right? And to live as a devotee in the world. This was basically his teaching. Swamiji, he understood, had that special power to really be able to assimilate these truths of Advaita Vedanta. But at the same time, Swamiji was a great devotee. He had a very tender, soft heart. What do you like, mate? You want to sit on the edge and sip it, or you want to dive in?
I would want to sip it.
Sip it. Sensible. It's a good idea. Most people would. And because we're identified with the body and our individuality and everything. And we don't know what it means to lose that sense of individuality. We think it means we disappear, we don't exist anymore. Until we have some taste of this samadhi experience, then we won't know. Even that, we get the impression in that state of samadhi that there's no experiencer there. So it almost seems like it's a negative experience. But those who come back from that state of samadhi are filled with bliss and joy and transformed, and all of their old samskaras are all burned up, their karma is gone and everything. So it can't be just a negative experience. It has to be something life-changing, transforming. But we can't say anything about it. That's also beyond the mind. Achintya. Chapter 12, we have that word dehavat, and this is interpreted differently. It says that those who are dehavat, for them, then with this with dukkha, with great difficulty, they would follow this path of the infinite absolute. So Shankaracharya says it means those who have this strong body identification. The devotee schools will say it means everybody, because everyone possesses a body, right? Both are true. Both are true. It's difficult because we all have some identification, but those who have the stronger identification, it's virtually impossible. Those who have less, everyone's an embodied being. Dehavat. We all have a deha. But those who don't feel too much connection with it, and connection with the world and people and everything, they have some natural type of dispassion and vairagya. They're the ones who can follow that path. That's why traditionally it was more or less reserved for the sannyasis, Advaita Vedanta, and study of Upanishads, all of that. Lunchtime.
This is what Anand wrote about the
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
Due to Earth's uneven speed in its elliptical orbit and its axial tilt, noon GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, is rarely the exact moment the sun crosses the Greenwich meridian and reaches its highest point in the sky there. This event may occur up to 16 minutes before or after noon GMT, a discrepancy calculated by the equation of time. Noon GMT is the annual average moment of this event, which accounts for the word mean in Greenwich Mean Time.
Yeah, it'll change a little bit. Yeah. You know, when they had the tsunami that hit Japan, the tilt of the earth changed a little bit. So all the calculations will be a tiny bit off. Yeah. Yeah, so everything is an approximation. The sun alone knows when it's at the zenith. Even then it doesn't know, but yeah. Good, that's interesting. Yeah, it would have to be different every day because everything is changing. The day by day, the latitude, longitude, one of them will be changing. The sun goes this way, and then this way, and then this way, and then this way, and this way. And that's why the southern exposure is good, because we get the winter sun and the summer shade.
Would that change hemisphere to hemisphere, Maharaj? Northern hemisphere versus southern hemisphere?
It changes in between. It changes the opposite with the solstice, but not with the equinox. I think the equinox should be the same. Only the reversed. One is the vernal equinox, and the other is the whatever it is. I can't remember the name.
One term gets used is autumnal.
Autumnal.
Equinox or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Vernal is spring, I think. Autumnal
the other one is
equinox.
autumn.
Autumnal equinox.
Spring equinox.
Yeah. But I think it'll be the same. If it's the longest day of the year in the north, it'll be the shortest in the south.
Right.
But if it's the equinox, I think it'll be equal in both north and south. And then of course on the equator, everything it's the equinox all the time.
Right.
Equinox. I'm guessing it's from that, huh? Must be that. Even the word night is from Nakta. That's why we have our G and an H in there, even though we don't pronounce it. So, Meta, thank you. Was it fun? Did you learn stuff? Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah. Now you know all about periscope.
On the right there. Triangles.
Right triangles and everything, yeah. No, but it's interesting. Where do we see things? Yeah, are we seeing the ship there? Are we seeing it reflected here? Are we seeing it down here? We get the impression that it's on our level through a periscope when it's really much higher.